Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name's Michael. I'm one of the pastors here at Cedarbrook, and we are continuing on in our message series called Not in the Bible, where we have phrases that we all use in life, or we have heard them used to us, right? People said them to us, and they sound like they might be from the Bible, but we're telling you they're not from the Bible. We just want to take those sayings and we want to change them into sayings that are actually from the Bible. And for today's not in the Bible saying, I got a little object lesson here for you. Anybody know what these are? Yeah, dominoes. The funny thing is that nobody knows how to really play this game. At least I don't. But what we all do know how to do is that intuitive thing of you set them up right like this, right? This is what we do with this game. You just got to set them all up. And this really is this little object lesson that I want to use, that we all live by this little thing called cause and effect, right? We have things that cause things to happen in our life. And we typically start with the effect. What has happened in my life? What is going on, good or bad, right? And then we try to trace it back to the cause. And the whole idea of this little game that we have set up here is to do what? Knock it down and to see what happens, right? If you do a good job of this, then they all fall down, right? And then you can set up in elaborate different ways, more than just this here, right? And you try to test it out and see how it goes. But it's all cause and effect. Cause and effect. If I were to knock this one down, my hope is that they would all fall down, right? That's the goal that I'm going for with this. Should we try it? See what it looks like? Okay. Success. All right, I did it. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. But that's the idea behind this, the cause and effect of life. We have things that happen to us in life, and we look back and see what the cause is. When things are good, we're like, oh, yeah, let's trace this back. It's amazing how we met as friends or as that significant other, and we look back at how things have woven together for us to meet, or the startup of that business, or the buying of that house, and all the things just came together, and oh, it's so good. But what about when things are bad? The whole cause and effect mindset, when things are bad, we try to trace it back. Oh, that person that we fell in love with, well, now has fallen in love with someone else, and we try to trace it back to see where things went wrong. That cause and effect. What caused that to happen? Or the abuse that happens in your family. You've been abused, and you trace it back and go like, well, that's because the person who abused me was abused, and the person that abused them was abused, and we trace it all the way back. All of these awful things that happen, and we live in this mindset of cause and effect. The best that we can do is go, what was that cause at the beginning? But the difference of what I want to focus on today is our saying that everything happens for a reason. And there's a difference between cause and effect and the reason behind the cause. Sometimes we confuse the cause, this one falling down and toppling in that one and all the way down, with the reason for it. What's the reason? What's the reason for this one falling down, right? What's the motive? What was it? Well, I wanted to show off a little bit, right? I want to show off my domino skills and lay them out and look at what I did, right? But what if there's another scenario behind that? What if a younger sibling, as I'm setting these up, they just want to be mean, and they come over and knock it down before I'm ready, and it just ruins the whole thing? What's the reason for them to cause it to fall down? Well, that's a bad motive, isn't it? So the point is that we can sometimes find the cause of things, and actually it's actually helpful to find the cause of things sometimes. But we don't always know the motive or the reason behind someone causing that thing to fall down. And we use this phrase, everything happens for a reason, in hopes that we can discover what that reason is. Because for some way for us in our lives, that will make things feel better. We have to have this hope that everything happens for a reason. We can discover what that reason is, and then it somehow makes it okay. It comforts us in some way. But when you're going through suffering, when you have a great loss in your life and you're grieving, and someone says, you know what, everything happens for a reason, I'll be honest, it's not helpful. Because in the midst of it, like, what reason would be good enough to cause this thing to happen, to cause all of this grief and loss and suffering? And I want us to think about things differently. Because the Bible isn't talking about cause and effect like this. Because when you start looking at this, if you start going down the road of what's the cause of this thing to happen, and that's our only focus, we lose sight of what the Bible is really describing of who God is. Is God just this ultimate causer and effector, right? He's just there to cause this to happen, good or bad. God's going to cause this to happen because everything happens for a reason. It gives us some comfort, but it's not true, and it's not even in the Bible. What we have in the Bible is a God that sees the chaos in his life, and he brings order to the chaos, speaks order into the chaos. And there we have this God that sees death in life, and he can actually create life in this death. But there's also this enemy that's out there that wants to ruin all that, wants to cause it to go back into chaos, wants death to happen. And this chaos type of being, this chaos creature, doesn't always do things that are reasonable or that we can find reason in them. And then we sit here in our suffering and we try to make sense of this because everything happens for a reason, cause and effect to everything. But what do you do when you can't figure out the reason? Well, you start feeling maybe like one of these Bible characters. This guy named Job. Anybody know Job at all? When I say the name Job, you're like, yeah, I've read that story before. This is a person that has done nothing wrong. God even says that he is the only person. There's no one like Job on the whole earth. There's no one like Job. He's doing things that are right. He has a reverent fear for God. And he shuns the evil that causes this chaos and suffering in his world. And Job he's a really wealthy individual. He's very much blessed by God, and people measure that blessing by how wealthy he is. He's got so many livestock. It's just like an enormous amount. He's got crops and fields that go on for days. And even his kids, he's got like 10 kids, which is a sign of blessing. 10 kids. And they all seem to like get along and like hanging out together. Anybody want a life like that? Like that would be great. But then bad things start happening to Job. Like that all the things that seem good in his life start toppling down. Bad stuff is happening to him. He loses his livestock. Raiders come in and they just take it right away. And then right after that, all of his crops gone. And then right after that, his kids are killed, all of them. After that, he ends up losing his own health. And he's sitting there and he's suffering. And yet he says something to the effect of, you know what, God gives and God takes away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. And that sounds really good. And you want to like needle point that and put it on a pillow and hang it on your wall or something. But just think about that. His whole mindset is cause and effect. You know, God gives and God takes away. God gives and God takes away. Is that who God is? Is God's those one that is the causer of good and bad? Is that what's going on? So he lives in a whole world that's like that. His whole mindset is that way. And not just him, but his friends. His friends hear about his great suffering and his loss of all of his loss and his own body and his health. And they come to visit. And I say friends this way because the best thing that those friends do is they come and they sit with him and don't say anything. Because as soon as they open their mouth, they just say some stupid stuff. You ever been there? Like you're just in a really hard place. And people don't know how to make sense of what's going on in your life. And then they say things that are trying to make sense of it, to try to help you. But really what they should say is just nothing at all. They say things like, well, everything happens for a reason. Really, all of my loss and my grief and this death that I have to experience, this suffering I'm going through, everything happens for a reason. Tell me what the reason is. And that's exactly what his friends go on to do for chapters. Chapters. They go on and they talk to him about what wrongs he has done. They say that the whole cause of this, whole cause of his thing is not God, right? But the reason behind it, really the cause behind it is him, his own sinfulness. Well, that's a cheery thing to hear when you're suffering. You brought this on yourself. I mean, you made your bed. You got to sleep in it. They just say some really hurtful things because they're trying to make sense of it. They're trying to figure out what's the cause of this thing. And their only mindset is that it's got to be Job. God rewards those who do good. He's experienced that. And God punishes those who are sinful. So it's got to be his own sinfulness, his own evil, and his own wickedness. Now, let's be honest. There's some truth to that. Sometimes our suffering is from other people's sinfulness and sometimes from our own evil. Let's just be honest with that. Not really the best time to hear that when you're suffering, is it? But they're trying to figure out what's going on in his life, and it's got to be him. The strange thing is that we learn from God himself, not just the cause, but the reason that all of this is happening. I'm going to show you Job chapter 2, verse 3. Talking about Job, he says, Job still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. Job chapter 2, verse 3. Do you see it there? What's the reason? Not the cause. We see the effects of his life, and there's some cause, there's something going on there. There's something in this spiritual realm that's contributing to this, right? There's the cause. We see the cause, we see the effect. But what's the reason? This is God speaking now, not just Michael, right? This is God's own words from this text, so we can take him at his word. It happened for no reason. That's tough to swallow, isn't it? That things would happen in life without a reason? That's chaos happening. Chaos doesn't do things with reason. It wants chaos, not order. Not everything happens for a reason. It's uncomfortable to sit with, isn't it? And I know this firsthand, just my own, if you will, Job experience. See, I grew up with a mindset to say the least, to not get your hopes up, right? You don't want to get your hopes up, and why don't you want to get your hopes up? Because if it doesn't happen, what does happen? You're disappointed, right? So if you never get your hopes up, you're never disappointed. You never have to experience that. Now, I could try to trace it back and figure out where that came from, and it might be helpful, but the fact is that's the way I lived most of my life. And that really became challenged for me back in 2006 when Amanda and I became pregnant. And I say I, but really loosely. The male contribution to pregnancy is pretty minimal, right? She's carrying this baby, developing this baby, all of this. And the reason why that it was a cool thing of joy, but yet it was hard because she has this kidney disease that would result 99% of the time in this child not making it to full term. And the challenge came to me of how am I going to handle this? Am I just going to be like, well, let's not get our hopes up because this child's probably going to die anyway? Or am I going to embrace the joy of potential parenthood, of being as father? Well, that's what I did. I embraced it. I decided I'm going to go all in. I know that there's a very small chance that our little Eloise is going to make it to full term. But I'm going all in. And because of Amanda's high-risk pregnancy, when we did go to the doctor, they always did an ultrasound every time. And she went regularly. I mean, like every couple of weeks, they were checking on her and our little girl. And I was super excited when you get the little pictures of it and you can see her development. And you put it on the fridge and I just got excited. I was like, man, it's so fun. I'm going to be a dad. I am a dad. I was so excited. We got some clothes for her. And one stood out in particular, a little onesie that just said Daddy's Girl on it. And I was like, yeah, that's my little girl in there. And I loved it so much that I took it and I put a little nail in the wall and I hung it on the wall so every time I walked downstairs into our bedroom, I could see it on the wall there every time. Just made me so proud. Like, here she is. And then one day we went to the doctor. It's about 6 months into the whole pregnancy, so we're doing pretty good. We're hoping that we can make it a little longer. Maybe she get born early and we can nurse her to health. And we go and we sit down, and they're doing the ultrasound, and we're waiting for the nurse to like turn the ultrasound machine to us so we can see her and all of that. And she just sits there quietly, and she doesn't turn the machine. And then she gets up and she leaves, and we're just standing there going like, what is going on? And she comes back a few minutes later, and she brings the doctor with her. And the doctor goes over and looks at the ultrasound machine. And then just real quietly, he just says, sometimes we don't know why these things happen. And we're just sitting there going, well, what is he talking about? And I think he's talking about something no one's actually saying out loud. So I just asked, I said, is she dead? Yeah, she died. And Amanda just burst out in tears. I mean, just wailing. And I just went numb. No feeling at all. No joy, no disappointment, just numb. And we went back home, and some family came over, and I had to go downstairs to get something, and I walked down the stairs, and I saw the little onesie on the wall. And I took it down, and I said, she was supposed to wear this. And I just collapsed, and I sobbed. I've never cried that hard before. It just all came pouring out. My little Eloise was supposed to wear this, and now she can't. She's gone. You guys, I knew this was a possibility, and yet it still affects me even to this day. The likelihood of her life not making it to full term was super great, and yet no parent should ever outlive their child. And I remember in the days and the weeks ahead, in my times of prayer, of devotional with God, I remember one time in particular, I was praying and I was really wrestling with this whole thing of the reason why this happened. And I remember praying so clearly, God, tell me what the reason is. I see the cause, I see the effect, I want to know the reason. And I'll tell you, I was pretty angry at the moment. And I was already had it made up in my mind that there was no good reason that God could ever give me for her death happening. So I said, give me a reason why this happened, because if you don't give me a reason, then it happened for no reason. And I'm telling you, it was like as clear as day. God saying, yeah. So what are you going to do with that? What does your faith look like when things happen for no reason? What does our faith look like if sometimes things happen for no reason? It's what happened to me. There's no reason you could come up with that would be good enough that I could say, yeah, that was a great outcome. For Job, we hear clearly it happened without reason. This evil one, this chaos creature that's opposed to God and his creation, wanted this to happen without any reason, and it still happens to us today. What does our faith look like if things happen for no reason? Not everything happens for a reason. And I know some of us want to go like, well, we just don't always know the reason. True. But this story is telling us that it's not even just that we don't know. It's that sometimes things happen without reason. Cause, effect, yes. Reason, not always. Now, Job, like myself, had a huge argument with God too. Wanted to know, tell me the reason. I've done nothing wrong. Tell me what's going on. Wants God to answer him. I want an answer, right? I demand that you listen to me and give me an answer, just like I did. You tell me what the reason is, otherwise there's no reason. And then God speaks to Job. Doesn't give him the reason. Doesn't tell him any of the cause or any of that. Job is completely blind to all of that. But talks to Job and says, Job, I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to tell me, where were you when the foundations of the earth were made? Because you know so much. You know this whole cause and effect thing. You've got it all figured out. You know how that all works. So tell me where were you when the storm clouds formed? And when I parted the seas, where were you? Tell me how that works. Now, this isn't to make Job feel ashamed, but there was an outcome of this whole thing. Job did learn something more about who God is, that God isn't just this one that gives and takes away, that he's more than that. Actually, the last lines of Job help us to understand this. If you look at Job chapter 42, verse 5, here's what Job's response is. He says, my ears heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. And I think we need to stop and just understand this, okay? His ears heard of this God that was out there, that would do good if you did good. Right? He heard of this God out there. But now he sees who God really is. Like, it's the difference between, hearing how a football game went versus being there and seeing it and experiencing it firsthand. It's the difference between hearing about what being in love is like versus experiencing what being in love is like. Do you see? He has learned something more about who God is. Now, nowhere along the line did God say, you know what, everything happens for the reason, and this reason that this happened was to get you to a place where now you know me more. It doesn't say that. Happened with no reason. Doesn't give Job the reason for it because it happened without reason. It wanted to, right? It doesn't do that. But what does God do? He works in this suffering and this chaos to bring out a good purpose, a relationship with Job that goes beyond just hearing about God to having this relationship with God and knowing who he is. God's not here causing the bad stuff to happen for the reason of like, oh, now we've got something good. No, God works within it, works within our suffering and our loss to bring out a good purpose. That's an incredible God. Chaos already existing. God speaks order into the chaos. That's something good in it. There's death in this life. Something has never been a part of God's plan, and yet God will work in it to create life from this death. And God, who does not give this reason for this to happen, but he brings purpose out of our suffering and our loss and our grief. We need to shift from trying to figure out just the cause or the reason and ask God, how are you bringing a good purpose from my loss and my suffering and my grief? For me, I got to experience not just what being a parent is like and being excited, but also the pain of losing a child and honoring her life with how I live my life. That's unique to me. That's a purpose that God brought out of it for me. And I feel so strongly about this, that it's not just in the story of Job, but the people of followers of Jesus. They write about what God is doing. They suffer losses too in following Jesus. You'd think everything would be good because you're following Jesus now. You're living in his way, in his kingdom, and so everything should go smoothly, and yet they experience persecution and threats and loss of life and loss of jobs and all of that. And what do they say about this? Now, this might be a famous verse for some. I have to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a trigger verse for me until I really dove into it and understood it well. But it comes from Romans 8:28. And the writer of Romans says this, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Stop for a second, okay? If we have a cause and effect mindset, that means, oh, God is causing this stuff to happen so he can make some good come from it. But it's not what it's saying. It's saying that God works in everything, the good, the bad. And he brings good. He is working to bring good out of everything. Life from death, order from chaos, purpose from suffering. God brings a purpose from everything. What are the things that you're suffering right now? What's the grief that you are going through? What are your losses that maybe you've just become numb to? That you need to have this moment with God and say, I want to see not the cause or the reason, but God, show me the purpose. Bring a purpose out of my suffering and my grief and my loss. We don't always get to know the reason. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes it happens for no reason. But God always brings a purpose from everything. Brings a purpose from your suffering. Brings a purpose from your grief. Brings a purpose from your loss. Brings a purpose from your own sinfulness. He can work in that. Brings a purpose from other people's sinfulness that's affected you. Let's take some time to have an honest conversation, not just to hear about how God works, but to see how God works in our very lives. God, show me your purpose. I'm going to trust that you are going to bring a good purpose from my suffering, even if I can't understand it, even if I can't find that reason, even if it doesn't work for me to find that cause that's affecting my life. God, show me your purpose that you're bringing from all of this evil and suffering. Let's pray. Lord Jesus Christ, we come before you as people that are at a loss and have lost. People that have contributed to chaos and the chaos that has affected us, that our sinfulness has gotten out of hand, that we've experienced the sinfulness of others. And we'd love to know the cause of all this. We'd love to go back and understand the reason because it may bring us some comfort. But God, right now, we set all that aside to ask you to show us what your purpose is that you can bring from our suffering, our grief, and our loss. Jesus, in your name we pray. Amen.